Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. As Hurricane Helene has wreaked havoc on whole cities, towns, and states, we also have a massive chemical fire. As far as I know, the fifth massive chemical fire in the poison states of America for the month of September that is now leaving approximately 90,000 Georgia residents sheltering in place. There's a reason I've covered this for years. The environmental calamities going on, I believe environmental genocide going on, and what's going on in Georgia right now is very, very unsettling and scary, and will likely be swept under the rug like other poisonings happening in the poison states of America. If you don't know, over 90,000 Georgia residents sheltering a day after chemical plant fire sent chlorine into the air. To be clear, from experts I spoke to, that is not just like chlorine in your pool going into the air. It is chlorine in the form of gas going into the air. If you know your history, chlorine gas was used as a chemical weapon in World War One. This is in Conyers, Georgia, which is about 32 miles away from Atlanta, Georgia. More than 90,000 residents in a county east of Atlanta were told to keep sheltering in place Monday, and businesses were told to stay closed a day after chemical plant fire sent a massive plume of dark smoke high into the sky that could be seen for miles. Alarmingly, although residents were told to shelter in place, although businesses are closed, schools are open. Square that circle. Schools are open in this area. Air quality surveys done by the EPA and the State Environmental Protection Division, quote, revealed the harmful irritant chlorine detected in the air from the fire at the BioLab plant in Conyers, Georgia. The Rockdale County government said in a statement early Monday. To be clear, in order to, cancel out any conspiracy theories, which there will be, this is not a bioweapons lab. It's called BioLabs, but it actually makes pool and spa treatments. So nothing to do with bioweapons or anything like that. Just kind of an odd name. Quote, for everyone sheltering in place, the best practice is to turn the air conditioning off and keep windows and doors shut, the statement said. The fire was brought under control around 4 p.m. Sunday. Interstate 20, which was shut down in both directions in the area, was reopened Monday morning. Some other roads in the county and county government offices were closed. The fire ignited when a sprinkler head malfunctioned around 5 a.m. Sunday at the BioLab plant in Conyers. The malfunctioning caused water to mix with a water-reactive chemical, producing a plume of chemicals. By the way, this is not this chemical plant's first fire. We'll get to that in a bit. I want to show you these images because they are downright horrifying images. There's an enormous chemical fire about 20 miles east of Atlanta. BioLab Industries had a fault in a sprinkler system. I mean, look at that. That is staggering. Kind of looks like East Palestine and what happened there in 2023. That is from someone on Twitter, video shot by this person's nephew. Here's more shots. This is from Defend the Forest Twitter account, who has been involved in the Cop City protests. In Conyers, an Atlanta suburb, a BioLab chemical plant burns because of 40 years of deregulation. In the city of Atlanta, noxious chlorine fumes blanket the streets, irritating the throat, nose, eyes. West North Carolina is underwater, referring to Hurricane Helene, who Asheville, North Carolina, is particularly destroyed and underwater. Beirut, under rubble, referring to Israel's bombing in Beirut. But look at that plume. Oh my God. Here's another shot from this chemical plant. Again, makes pool and spa treatments. So far, according to the EPA, who I don't necessarily trust, to be completely honest, based on my reporting over the years of the EPA's dishonesty in Flint and elsewhere, they've detected chlorine in the air, which would be in the form of gas. This is from I-20 in Conyers, Georgia. You could see that massive plume on the highway. The smoke from BioLab's fire in Conyers definitely travel to Snellville. So this is Snellville, Georgia. Snellville is almost 16 miles away. So Snellville, 16 miles away. Atlanta residents are breathing this in today, this morning. There are reports in Atlanta, the city, where they are smelling this. And Atlanta is, let me make sure I have that right, 32 miles away from Conyers. So this thing goes far, far, far and wide. And right now, 90,000 residents are still sheltering in place. I want to give you the bigger picture because this is not isolated just to Atlanta. The Georgia area, 5 chemical disasters in the U.S. this month. And this is from Michael Esaluka. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. Just in September, the Akron chemical plant fire, which I'll give you an update on shortly. September 16th, La Porta, Texas pipeline fire. September 20th, my birthday, Geismar, Louisiana, hydrogen gas plant explosion. September 25th, so a couple days ago, styrene leak from train near Cincinnati, Ohio, and this one in Georgia. And our biggest threat, we're being told, is coming from Russia or China. Biggest threat is capitalism, deregulation, and corporate genocide on the people. Even if it's accidental, how do you think these things keep happening? And by the way, this is not the first time. This is not the first time this has happened, which we'll get to. Another headline on this Georgia fire, many report chemical smells over Atlanta amidst Conyers plume. Mayor says fire crews going out with detectors. So this is in Atlanta. They're smelling chlorine gas. As a chemical plume continues to spew over Conyers following a fire Sunday at a BioLab facility, many in Atlanta on Monday reported the smell of chlorine in the air. Fire personnel were going around with detectors to see what's in the air. Quote, "We've been made aware." The plume emanating from the site in Conyers was still substantial. Monday morning, traffic cameras showed. Reminder: from what I'm seeing, they did not close schools. How are many businesses closed, but schools are not closed? How are residents sheltering in place, but schools are not closed? Make that make sense. Does not make sense at all. I want to point this out. Ola Ajumi, again, probably not pronouncing right. Have you ever noticed how these chemical lab fires and explosions of toxic contaminants into the air tend to happen in black neighborhoods? This facility in Conyers, Georgia, has a 64% black population. This is BioLab's third fire in 7 years. Third fire in 7 years. The U.S. Chemical Safety Board found strong winds from Hurricane Laura damaged the lab's warehouse. Interesting. So in 2020, you had a big hurricane that I guess sparked or triggered some type of accident at a chemical plant. And now you have Hurricane Helene, and days later, a chemical plant fire. You seeing a pattern? Maybe not such a great idea to have dangerous chemical plants all over the United States with barely any regulation, as the climate inferno causes many more disastrous storms. A massive fire burns at the BioLab facility in Conyers, Georgia, after a faulty sprinkler head ignited a water reactive chemical. This same facility had a similar event in 2020 and 2024, both of which resulted in a rise of regional cancer rates. I can't, at the moment, as I'm first reporting this, confirm whether regional cancer rates went up and if it's directly tied to this, but it would not surprise me whatsoever. And you have to compound this with the destruction for Hurricane Helene. This is just one person on Twitter. Right now, my side of Georgia doesn't have power or water. And there's a shelter-in-place evacuation order here because a lab caught on fire, and now there's toxic smoke in the air. Like, what is happening? Why is Georgia self-destructing right now? I can tell you a reason. Capitalism and climate infernos that are being allowed to happen by corrupt politicians. Here's another one. Hardly any signal, whole roads down, hours wait on gas and food, AT&T and T-Mobile down, no gas, big area, no water, hundreds of power workers here finally, still going to be days, and it's hot. It's a crisis situation, and I don't think we have federal help because of the governor. And I want to remind you that there was a massive chemical fire in Akron, Ohio. This is from Comrade, Ohio. Does great work in the Akron, Ohio area. Great activist. This is the chemical plant fire. I believe it was about, let me get the date. Yeah, about a month ago. They evacuated a half-mile radius, which was absolutely reckless. It should have been much more than a half mile. Constant explosions. Xylene, which is a very harmful chemical, among other chemicals, were released. And they did the same thing they did in East Palestine and elsewhere. Pretty much had people home by dinner. And declared days later, nothing to see here, even though firefighters reported being sick and other residents reported being sick. Akron chemical plant fire extinguished after about 48 hours. The fire was still going. It was going for 3 days. Yet they brought people home before the fire was out. After about 48 hours, the fire at SMB Product Chemical Plant in Akron has been extinguished, according to the city of Akron. The fire broke out Thursday afternoon and is believed to involve chemicals such as propane, methanol, xylene, ether, and ethanol. Let me just give you a little dose here on xylene in particular. A small amount of xylene exposure will likely not cause long-term health effects. Yeah, that doesn't look like a small amount. More severe exposures could take a few days to develop, where repeated direct exposure can cause permanent damage to the brain, muscles, hearts, and kidneys. So, good idea to only evacuate a half mile. Great idea to bring them home pretty much as the fire's still burning. Nothing to see here. And by the way, we've been one of the only ones reporting on an ongoing basis. We've taken 7 on-the-ground reporting trips to East Palestine and Western Pennsylvania as the federal and state level EPA totally lie to residents in East Palestine and Western Pennsylvania about the cancer-causing chemicals sickening them and tell them nothing to see here. You're beginning to see a pattern here. By the way, this isn't like a Democrat versus Republican thing. It's both sets of politicians and agencies run under both Democrats and Republicans are lying to the people. A little more on xylene in the case of the Akron, Ohio fire. Damaging effects of xylene, respiratory system. Inhaling xylene vapors can cause difficulty breathing, lung problems, and irritation to the eyes, nose, and throat. Nervous system, xylene can cause headaches, dizziness, drowsiness, nausea, and sleepiness. Could also lead to central nervous depression, decreased concentration, and insomnia. Endocrine system, xylene exposure could cause menstrual cycle disturbances and endocrine disruption. Liver, xylene is highly toxic to the liver. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And by the way, from that Akron fire at the beginning of September, Akron firefighters report health issues after battling large commercial site blaze. And from activists on the ground, it wasn't just firefighters reporting those health issues. It was residents. As they told them, as the local, state, and federal government told them, nothing to see here. You could go home. Oh, and by the way, the environmental testing company that the mayor of Atlanta and the city of Atlanta used to say nothing to see here is CTEH, who was contracted by the chemical plant in the case of Akron, SMB Products, to declare nothing to see here. CTEH is the same corporate testing company that says nothing to see here in East Palestine. You're beginning to see a pattern. In the case of this Georgia chemical plant fire, to be clear, I don't know if there are other chemicals in the air. I would imagine it's not just chlorine gas in the air, even though that's what people are smelling. It's very rare in these situations for only one chemical. You have a bunch of chemicals that mix, then you have combustion, and a whole new set of other chemicals are created. In the case of East Palestine, toxicologist I've been talking to with over 55 years of experience, George Thompson, His analysis has found that over 100 cancerous chemicals were created through the combustion after those 5 vinyl chloride cars were detonated in East Palestine. So it is early days in the case of this Georgia fire to fully know how many chemicals, what chemicals are in the air, and what are the health effects. But as I record this Monday morning, I'm pretty sure, based on the track record, the EPA and local authorities in Conyers and Atlanta are probably going to end that shelter in place possibly by tonight, Monday night. Tell everyone it's safe to go home and say we're not detecting anything anymore. Don't believe them. Do not believe them. Believe your body, believe your common sense, believe your symptoms, and be safe. Keep the windows down and make sure you are not going outside and you're not allowing your kids to go outside during this.